Hello and welcome. We are starting 2-1, so we're starting Module 2 in the first section of Module 2, Writing and Interpreting Equations. So I can create and interpret equations that describe relationships, and this is standard ACED 1. So students translate between sentences and equations and use them to solve problems. So we're going to just start with translating today. So vocabulary, an equation. It is a mathematical statement that contains two expressions and an equal sign. So the key is the equal sign, and you're going to have an expression on either side of the equal sign. So we talked about expressions over the last couple of weeks. Then we have a constraint, a condition that a solution must satisfy. And we will talk more about that as we get into it. So key concepts in writing equations. We're going to use these steps. So these are important steps to write down, so make sure you pause and write this down. Identify each unknown and assign it a variable, which we talked about assigning variables last week or the week before. Step 2, identify the givens and their relationships. So that means identify what we were given in the problem. And then we're going to write the sentence as an equation. So write an equation for the sentence, a number plus 8 is 10. So I have to identify the unknown, would be the first step. And I'm going to call a number x, so that's the unknown. And then I'm just going to do what it says. So x equals the number. So x, and then it says plus, that's a key word, plus 8 is equal. So remember that, that's important. Is equal to 10. And that's all it's asking you to do. Write an equation for the sentence 2 plus the quotient of a number and 8 is the same as 16. So we have to determine what we have. I see a number, so I can determine this and say this isn't any variable I want. I'm just going to pick x because I like x. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the sentence here. I'm just going to go 2 plus the quotient of a number and 8. So quotient. Remember, quotient means divide, but we're going to write that as a fraction now. So we have x and 8 and is the same. Here's that word is again, and here's another hint right here. When something's the same, they are equal. So that's another hint. So equals 16. Okay, a little wordier, but we can get this. So while training for a marathon, Deb is increasing the total distance she runs each week by 1.5 miles. She ran 17 miles the first week. This might be important. And 1.5 miles increased every week. If she sticks to the schedule, she will run 39.5 miles the week before the marathon. We are going to write an equation that represents the situation. So the first thing I need to know, this is that 39.5 miles. So that's going to be what we want to equal. We want it to equal 39.5 miles. And then the question is, do we have a variable? We do have a variable because we don't know the amount of weeks. So we're going to call x equals weeks. Now, if I go back and I look, we started with 17. Is 17 going to be multiplied by weeks? Does it have anything to do with weeks other than that's the first week? No. So we will start with 17. And then it says each week here. Each week. So we said X is weeks. So each week we're going to multiply that by X, by my weeks. And then my question is, we're adding this to that. So she's increasing her miles. And then we've already said that needs to equal 39.5 miles. And this is our equation. So we just, every time we see something like this, we need to step by step through it and really determine what we have and what we need. Okay, translate the sentence into a formula. The perimeter of a rectangle is twice the sum of the length and the width. So, perimeter and rectangle. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle. The length, I'm going to say, is L. The width is W. So the perimeter of the rectangle. So how do I find perimeter? We do need to know that. So perimeter is all the way around as if I were to walk. So it would be 2L plus 2W is going to equal perimeter. Now for this certain rectangle, it says twice the sum of the length and width. Sum means add. I can define length and width as L and W. And I'm just going to write what it says. So twice the sum, 2 times the sum. So that means I take the sum first. That's why I have to have the parentheses of the length plus width equals perimeter. In a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse, C, is equal to the sum of the squares of the length of the legs A and B. Now this is probably a formula that you know, but let's go through this. So the square of the hypotenuse C is equal. So we'll take C, take the square, equals to the sum, that means add, of the squares of the length of the legs A and B. So that means I'm going to square A, square B, and then I go back and I see sum means add. That should be a formula we recognize. Okay, homework. We're done with the video. Should be a short one, so watch the video and take notes. We've already done half of that. Now just make sure you have your notes and complete the WSQ by either filling out the Google form or by recording it in Flipgrid. And that has to have what you learned. Make sure you put what you learned more than stuff.